Ah, Vincent Price. You know him, you love him. Time has been a bit weird to Vincent Price, though. For example, you might think that Vincent Price was one of the acclaimed British actors who would regularly appear in Hammer horror movies. Nope, he was born in Missouri, and while he did work with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing on occasion, he never appeared in a Hammer production. I know most of you know this already, but the way pop culture works is that everything gets squeezed and condensed down, and suddenly people just start accepting common misconceptions as truth. Glad I can help. In deciding to cover some Vincent Price movies, I came to realize that while I think I've seen most of Vincent Price's numerous guest star, variety show, and cameo appearances, I haven't seen that much of his actual filmography, and that's crazy. So here are my thoughts on 2 first-time watches of classic Vincent Price movies. Twice Told Tales is an anthology film, and a long one at that, featuring Price as a main character in all 3 shorts. It's based on the works of Nathaniel Hawthorne, author of The Scarlet Letter. He once issued a collection of short stories called Twice Told Tales, and one of those appears in this film. It's the first story in the film, called Dr. Heidegger's Experiment, and the version here barely resembles the original material. It features 2 old friends hanging out in 1859, watching a storm. When lightning cracks open the family tomb, they investigate, discovering that Dr. Heidegger's dead bride, while still dead, hasn't aged or decayed in the nearly 40 years she's been inside. The doctor speculates that it's the water dripping through the earth above and tests it on an old rose, which is restored to full bloom. You know where this is going because both men have clearly been wearing old age makeup this whole time. So now they're young and they've decided to inject the dead woman with the water, and now they're all alive. But this reignites a secret love triangle, and then in the end, 2 of them end up dead. See kids, that's why you don't drink water dripping into your family crypt. I like that Price plays second banana to the main character of this story. It's a nice, sheepish performance that turns darker once the actual story presents itself. Also, it's the best of the 3 segments. The second, called Rappaccini's Daughter, is where I started to get a little sleepy. It's an entirely too long tale of a scientist who has hidden himself and his daughter away from the world, injecting her with deadly plant stuff in order to make sure nothing or no one ever touches her. Especially boys. A boy shows up wanting to touch her, and of course this is unacceptable. Price seems to come around on his warped way of thinking and offers to uninfect his daughter, but instead infects the dude with the same plant poison. In the end, which takes forever to come, everyone dies. I guess. The final tale is The House of the Seven Gables, which is actually a twice-told tale, as it was a feature-length film in 1940, also starring Vincent Price. In this version, a brother and his lady friend return home to his sister's family estate after a 17-year absence. It's a spooky house. The house is spooky. He's there to find a secret crypt, but ghosts don't want anyone to find it, and I swear I blacked out for an hour and came to just as the final credits rolled. This story is insanely leisurely paced, and man, I could not wait for this movie to end. The first story is fine, the other 2 not so much. Sadly, I think you should skip this one, despite triple the price. 1973's Theater of Blood, starring Vincent Price and Diana Rigg, is sort of a precursor to Seven, so 6. Except there are 8 murders, so 8. Whatever. Price plays Shakespearean actor Edward Lionheart, who the critics community has taken great delight in ridiculing over the years. After an award ceremony where Lionheart was sure he was going to win but doesn't, he seemingly commits suicide outside their offices.
So long life!
A couple years later, the same circle of critics starts to die off one by one, each time staged as a different death scene from a Shakespeare play. And although everyone was pretty sure that Lionheart was dead, it's also pretty clear that he's not. Let me go ahead and say that I like Theater of Blood. I think it's pretty okay overall. I suppose it would get higher marks if you're a Shakespeare fan. I am not. But it's probably going to sound like I dislike it intensely over the next couple of minutes, but really, it's worth watching, okay? Okay. The script goes out of its way to make this circle of critics just as shitty as possible, and then of course Price and his gang of purple drink mutants are equally shitty, so there's not a lot of emotional investment here. At one point, though, you may feel as though the critics are actually worse, as one of them has been tricked by Lionheart into murdering his own wife, and when the others discuss it, their reaction is basically, oh, that's terrible, he was old, so that's basically like a death sentence, and make no mention of his dead wife, that he literally just murdered over nothing. Also, it's odd that everyone is all Vincent Price sucks when he's acting the shit out of everything. So the premise seems weird. You'd think they'd have written in some kind of slight or some other connection he had to this critic circle and they vowed to blackball him over something petty, but no, they all basically think he's dreadful, and that's silly. Two last little nitpicks. Price has a hairy dude hanging out with him throughout the entire film, and sadly after about 15 minutes, it's painfully clear who that character actually is. Also, the critics keep going places. They're told that Lionheart is murdering them one by one, and they get police protection. And they keep going places without a care in the world. This wine tasting ceremony is super important. Whoops, dead. I must really attend fencing practice. Whoops, bleh. And so on. Just stay put for 24 hours. Holy Christ. Theater of Blood was directed by Douglas Hickox, who is Anthony Hickox's father, director of Waxwork. Now, both Price and Rigg consider this to be one of their very best films, and surprisingly, despite working for nearly 20 more years, this was one of Price's very last horror movies. And again, you should watch it. It's dated and silly, but still, it's Vincent Price at the top of his game.